behind me.
Ooh. When Winson comes back, I think we can start it. We can let people in, just chat a little bit. If while we're waiting for other people, right? They can start. They can start. I mean, while people are waiting, we can ask you the same question that I asked before. How's the resale market right now? And then you can kind of show people this while those people are waiting there doing nothing, right?
Yeah. Cool. Well, it's only 6 right now.
People usually come late. People usually come late, yeah. And yesterday there are 90 registration. Probably like one third. Well, probably one third will come.
You upgrade the game, Ethan. Yeah. But you guys, the background is really good. Okay, should we start?
Your call.
Yeah, let's start. I mean, like, we can wait for another 3 minutes, but let's tell them let's wait a little bit for another 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But if I
usually if you start at 3 o'clock, you usually start at like 3:05.
Yeah. And but when I start to share my screen, please, Nicholas, like
I'm on it. I'm gonna. You tell me to admit them in. I will tell them so. I will do so.
Now. Hi everyone.
No yet. Do you want me to do you want me to let them in?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Did you let everyone in?
Yeah, pretty much up here, and people are start coming in too.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Yes. Hi everyone, thank you for joining this meeting. We're gonna start at 3:05. There are still a lot of people joining. We are seeing people joining in. So yeah, so we're gonna start at 3:05.
Cool. Is Marco coming?
Yeah. Yeah, he is coming.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah.
Good. Say hi to your friends.
Hi everyone. We're gonna have the meeting started at 3:05. People are still joining. We're gonna wait a little bit and start. Thank you for.
Ethan, if you don't mind me asking, RPC, what's the fixed rate right now? 5 years.
You know, that's a taboo topic. We don't talk about rate openly. Because it's a case by case, right? It really depends on what property you're buying, the mortgage amount, your relationship with the bank, etc. Right? So it's not like, as a rule of thumb, like as of right now, the 5 year, roughly for 5 year fix is between like 1.69 to 1.89. Right, so that's for a 5 year fix. For 5 year variable is between 1.5 to 1.6, 1.7.
Yeah.
So there's a number of parameters that we take into consideration when determining the rate for specific clients. So there's no cookie cutter when it comes to a rate.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I thought it's the rate for everyone.
I wish it's that easy.
Yeah. Yep. Let me see. Okay, we shall start the meeting in 2 minutes. Yeah.
What do you, Isabella? What do you find the downtown resale market? I heard there are a lot of like multiple offers. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. And actually, I did some research yesterday. How do I? Yeah. So this was what was sold back in 2020, January 2020. There were only 379 units sold in downtown, like CO1, CO2, CO8, like waterfront community, like Bay Street corridor. That's pretty much downtown, but it was only 379 units, and the average price was only like 460. And it was to my surprise that like in this year, January, there were like 637 units sold like, in the same area and the same like kind of period. And the average price went up for like 527,000. So a lot of people have been saying like, oh, downtown market is not performing well, but this statistic like shows is doing really well. Yeah. Yeah. Let's start a meeting, should we?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. People are still joining, so.
It's okay, I'll let them in.
Yeah. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for joining our meeting today. My name is Isabella. I'm a Remax agent. I'm very experienced one. Today, the reason I want to host this meeting is I have a lot of clients and friends reaching out to me with real estate or mortgage questions. And a lot of people I know that during this pandemic, they are very confused about like what's gonna happen in this market. So today I want to have all these industry leaders, Winson, Ethan, and Nicholas, to give you guys some clarity. So we will talk about resale and pre-construction performance during this pandemic and also the prediction in the future. And we will also talk about the mortgage rates trends. And of course, as many of you guys concerned, a lot of you guys probably already have your mortgage right now. And a lot of people are wondering, is it worse for the penalty to break your current? We're gonna have Winson Peng from RBC to answer all those questions. And okay, so let me introduce, today we have Winson Chan and Nicholas Yang from Tridel. Tridel is one of the leading developer and builder in Toronto, and they have 8 decades of experience. They've been built like 85,000 homes in GTA. So it is my pleasure to have Winson and Nicholas say hi to everyone to join our meeting. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for coming. So Winson, you're gonna talk first. Winson is the vice president of sales development in Tridel, and he is also the past national president of Real Estate Institute in Canada. Thank you for your time, Winson. I know your time is very valuable, but I know that all the people in this meeting is looking forward to hear what you're gonna say. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and Winson, can you share your screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So thank you. Okay. So thank you very much, Isabel, for your invitation. Myself, and Nicholas, and you always been an integral part of our success. And thank you for the opportunity. Now, one thing that I can do, I have to have some pre-qualification or announcement before Stu. Me and Nicholas cannot predict the future. We just don't. We just basically try to share with you our observation of our market, and perhaps tell you a little bit more about like what we as the developer is going to see the market in the future. So I want to make it a little bit more interactive. And so Isabel, Ethan, and Nicholas is, we're going to interact to go through this condo update. All right. So as Isabel telling you before, I think the market has been quite resilient. We actually take a look of the market way back in the beginning of the pandemic, almost 1 year anniversary. We find the market, it's almost like in a frozen economy, not much action. Isabel just showed you the January stat compared to now that it seems that we recover a little bit. And very interesting too, if you actually take a look at the time gap before, our market had actually been quite frozen. Back in January 2019, we were actually at one of the highest market to a point that detached home and condo, the price gap, it's very, very small. For the past month or two, I'm sure that I don't even need to tell you that the detached home price really take off. And then a lot of people think, oh, condo, it's not doing as well, which is true. But if I take you back to the memory lane is, don't forget, the detached home was not actually performed quite well a few years before. And then the increase and the detached home market really take off because not just the recovery back to normal, but also increase a little bit more too. So if you compare the price gap to today to especially last year, you probably see the price gap quite a little bit more. The average home price is 1.2 million compared to a typical condo for around 700,000. Now, the other aspect that I not only focus on the number, we also want you to take a look at the background too. So when we talk about the market, we also talk about demand and supply. Last year, 2020, we also increased quite a bit of surprise too, because there's a lot of condominium registration. We almost have 7,000 condominium coming to the market. Those are the homes that I'm sure that Isabel or Nicholas sell a few years ago. Now that the building is done, it's also add to the market too. Now, obviously under COVID, our market does not perform as well. But as the recovery started to lift last summer, you see the sales actually go quite well. Isabel, like when you recall a few months ago, how would you feel the market from the beginning of the pandemic to now? Like how do you see it change? Isabel is muted.
You're muted.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, we had some quite months like when the pandemic just began. So, but right after, like after 2 or 3 months, it's like transaction after transaction, and especially as what Vincent said, like detached home is going crazy. And in my opinion, I think it's all about affordability. When the detached home goes like sky high, people still gonna come back to condo because that become the most affordable thing. That's why right now we are seeing a lot of bidding war in downtown market and also a lot of transaction.
Yeah, very well said, Isabel. And I think I just wanted to remind the audience to, yes, detachment going high too. Very important. We have to think about the affordability, which is a great point. Later on, I'm sure that Ethan is going to tell you a little bit more how you'll be able to afford a little bit more to that too. But condo is still a viable option. Now, obviously, fast forward to now, the market has actually recovered quite strong. Originally, quite honestly, in exactly a year ago, a lot of economists is not as optimistic, but I think under the COVID situation, under the full lockdown, now Canada also have further travel restriction, the border is closed, no immigrants, no foreign student, and we cannot do what I do best or easily do best to sell condos and then be able to help you buy your real estate, or even cannot come personally see you. We still have this type of result is actually quite resilient. So now the rental market actually take a quite a big hit. It's almost 10. Yeah, a lot of people reported 10 to even 15 percent lower. But as I wanted to remind the audience too, Toronto, under the backdrop of the Airbnb now being able to further restrict it, so there is a lot of suite on the market, and the border is closed. So originally there is a lot of workers coming to work downtown, they work from home, and then also too there is a lot more condo register. It's almost like a little perfect storm to make the rental market not perform as well. Rental listing, obviously under the backdrop of what I just told you, the rental listing increased a little bit too. So transaction-wise, it's also a change a bit. As much as the rent change year over year too, you see a steep drop as well too. Now, I want you to take a look at the downtown core. There is a lot more condo coming to the market, and there is a price change to almost like 15%. It is quite a bit of changes too, but I wanted you to remember this point too. We are still under the lockdown, and 15% drop under the condition that I was telling you, totally increase in supply, full lockdown situation, and the market cannot perform as well too. Only drop 15%. It's actually shows some resilience. And I also want you to remember this point too. Later on, we're going to talk to you in the long term. Now, in the immediate future, obviously, you're not going to change too much of the rent outlook because, as I mentioned, people may not be able to return to work. We're still under the lockdown. Immigrants cannot come here. Student cannot come here too. There's also increased the price too. So you're not going to see this change too much. But I wanted to remember, will that be like this situation forever? So I want you to remember that later on. I'm going to come back to it to show you. Now, other than the rent, I'm sure that as Isabel tells you, the market actually performed quite well compared to what we have before. The month of inventory continue to decline. We're going back into a seller market, and then our outlook for 2021, it's actually quite strong. And if you look back in 2020, we actually performed very well compared to a lot of economists that was predicted. So what had happened, as I mentioned before, this type of downturn last year was not triggered by any economic dynamics or any market dynamics. It's simply the market is closed. So the change of the market condition was just simply like an economic restriction. So meaning that if the economic restriction gradually lift, now obviously we're still under lockdown, we cannot do that yet. But if the vaccine in the horizon and economic restrictions started to lift, our market may be able to get back to normal. Now, we actually seen that before. Now, yes, we have not go through pandemic before, but SARS, the Japan nuclear disaster, and even 9/11, we still all graduate back to the normal after the episode. Tridel, been there before for sure. At 9/11, we actually launched one of our most successful project in the Sasaka called Ovation. At SARS, we launched Circa, which is also one of the most successful project in Markham. And in the financial crisis, we also launched the Hallmark Center. Now, 10 York, if you actually take a look at 10 York, for 10 York, we actually launched it back in 2012. That was also the credit crunch time too. So we've been there before. The market is actually quite resilient. There's a lot of economists predicted 2021 to be back to normal. If we have the vaccine and COVID under control. So let's pray that we be able to lift the restriction and go back. And the V-shape of recovery, not only a prediction, you actually see that already. Look at the market that we have today. Equity market is also another show of the confidence of the economy too. The market has not dropped as much as what a lot of people predicted. The reason being is, unfortunately, this pandemic unproportionately affected a certain part of our friends and family here in Canada. Now, whoever participate in retail, travel, and all that, unfortunately, they suffer a little bit. But on the same token, some of the audience here, we continue to have be able to work from home. If you participate in the technology industry, government, natural resource, and all that too, your income may not drop or maybe actually become more stable. You have more ability to work from home and all that too. So interestingly, that actually keep us afloat a little bit too. Now, I'm not saying that the market is fully recovered, but for the potential homeowner, whoever be able to afford a home, they be able to continue to afford a home here. Now, for the rental market, you see how the rental market affected. Unfortunately, a lot of people who participate in the rental market are unfortunately bigger proportion affected by that particular industry, like say that they will be in the rental market. Now, 2019 was a great year. Now, obviously, COVID, it's hit us very bad, but don't forget, we had a pinnacle year in 2019, and we collectively, as an industry, produced more than 22.6 billion. Now, if you take this number across any city in the United States or North America, it is not a small number. So show you that we have a very good cushion. Should even COVID take us to any more negative impact, we have a good cushion to mitigate any negative impact that we have. Canada love real estate. There's 3 million richest family have $8.7 trillion of assets actually ties into real estate or mortgages. So even Nicholas and I or Elizabeth, we have a lot of mutual customer that have the love of real estate. And I think that is very important. Now, going back to the rental market, when you take a look at the rental market, yes, it is really bad for now. But I highlight the fact that it won't be changed in the near future. But if you actually take the long-term outlook, a 15%, is that a real big drop? If you actually take it back to the memory lane again too, that's basically in 2016, 2017 level, which is not as bad as what a lot of people describe it. As a matter of fact, if you take a look at a place like Etobicoke or North York and all that, the rent has not actually changed substantially. So if you wanted to take a look at the rental resilient, yes, it's dropped, but I honestly don't think it's really as bad as a lot of media was reported. Now, let's take a look at long term. In the long run, do we actually would have a prolonged decrease in rental or prolonged decrease in demand of rental? I guess not, because the rental, as I mentioned, it is negatively affected a lot of industry right now. If you're in retail, restaurant, travel, yes, they'll not be able to perform. But if COVID start to recover, they will be back to the market. And will people be able to work from home forever? That's another question that you would need to ask: is everybody be able to work from home? Nicholas and I lately deal with a lot of doctors from the downtown area. They're ER doctor. They work in the hospital. I wish that they cannot work at home. If they work at home, we're in big trouble because they take care of the medical needs, emergency, and all that too. So I don't think we should count out the downtown market yet. As a matter of fact, if you take a look, we need actually over 200,000 rental unit for the next 10 years, simply because of the immigrants, the work opportunity, employment opportunity, education opportunity here. As a matter of fact, if you actually take a 2021, Isabel already told you a little bit about that too. You already see some growth in the downtown market already, both in rental and then also investment property. Now, this is the number that that article was telling you about. We need another over 200,000. Back in 2017, we have a short rental deficit. But then in 2012, we started to build some purpose-built rental. Us together with Isabel, Nicholas, we sell to investor that provide a little bit more condo to the market, but we still short. So if you have 100,000 people coming here, student coming back to here too, we may argue that we may not actually have enough condo in the future. So I think that would be something that we need to take a look or pay attention as well. Now, what shape the future? Isabel asked us to tell you a little bit of outlook too. To be very honest, I don't have a clue. I don't have a crystal ball. If you have, tell me. I don't. But I can tell you what to look for. You need to pay attention to the government policy. Should there be any, stress tests or, housing related, like we're talking about the vacancy tax and all that too. So that will be a positive or negative affect the market. That's for sure. Now, interest rate, I'll leave it up to Evan to give me the crystal ball. I'm looking forward to Evan's talk as well. But with my limited knowledge, interest rate may not be a big factor in the near future, but I'll defer it to Evan to further comment it. Global geopolitical outlook, very important, because whatever happened around Canada will positive or negatively impact the future immigration policy coming to this part. And then we may be positively affected by it too. Now, where I come from, I come from Hong Kong, and I'm sure that you know the geopolitical event happening between Hong Kong and China. That may also be positive to the Canadian markets as well too, because there's 300,000 Canadian in Hong Kong that may be able to plan coming back to here as well too. Employment opportunity later on, we're going to take a look. Will population growth, meaning immigration policy, most importantly, the COVID outlook, the vaccine rolled out, if we be able to do the restrictions. So those are the next couple of years that we needed to pay attention to. Immigration, I don't think is going to going down at all. Investment and foreign investor, smart sizing, the lifestyle change. I honestly don't think COVID it's going to change that too much. Later on, we're going to take a look at employment opportunity and education opportunity. Affordability, we kind of cover it already. If the detached home price continue to go higher too, affordability will bring you back to the condo market. Sometimes we also need to pay attention to the currency too, because back in 10 years ago, purchasing a home using Hong Kong dollars is not as advantageous. Lately, because of the weakness of our dollars, sometimes it's actually advantageous to purchase a property now. So I'm just using Hong Kong for example, but pay attention to currency exchange from Korean to for British pound to here, or most importantly US, because right now if you're using US dollar, you purchase any real estate in Canada, it's 30% off. Population growth. We anticipate a lot more people coming here, and I'm sure that you hear the announcement not too long ago. 400,000 in 2021, 400,000 in 2022, 421,000 in 2023. Now, obviously, not all 400,000 is coming to here to Canada, but I would say at least 100,000 were coming here at least, right? So I think this will be a number that you needed to remember. Now, why so many people coming here? Are we dreaming up the number, or Canadian government really dreaming it up? Not at all. Like, I'm sure that some of us, if you have friends from United States, they're always talking about a city, Arizona, Phoenix. I was there last year at a conference. They're really growing. The tech industry is moving from Silicon Valley to there because of the tax and everything too. But they all talk about big news about Arizona. But you know who actually trumped them in terms of population growth? Is actually Toronto and Montreal. So no wonder our real estate market has been so resilient for the past few years. Toronto is also deemed that one of the fastest growing global city in the world. Now, how is our ranking? Now, I'm actually quite surprised by the ranking as well too. After the COVID, we are all the way up to the top league like Singapore and London, because there is a lot of employment opportunity, education opportunity, which London and Singapore may or may not be able to have now. London, for obvious reason, they're no longer European Union. They have the fair share of COVID challenge. They also have the fair share of challenge inside London itself. So with the backdrop coming in, over 100,000 people coming here, we need at least 38,000 suites. Now, I highlight the word planted. When I plan to build condo, doesn't mean that I can build the condo. So when it planted, delay and further and all that too, you're always dealing with a 17,000 suite shortage. So I think that's the fact that you needed to remember. Our policy compared to US now, I cannot comment on Biden policy before, but Trump policy definitely not welcoming immigrant. Will Biden reverse this course quickly? Who knows? This will be the new Biden uncertainty, but Canada for sure is welcoming more people coming here. Now, why, when you have people coming here too, you have to have job for them. Now, I'm not talking about a job like Ethan have, or I have, or Isabel have in real estate or major industry. We also have a rise in the tech job here in Toronto. You may say, Winson, you must be kidding. The tech job must be in Bay Area, San Francisco, New York, and all that too. You're absolutely right. The number one is Bay Area, Seattle, Washington, New York. But guess what? We are number three coming here too. Even under the COVID, we're still within the top five. As you probably pay attention to the news, you see Shopify, Amazon, Google, they all have major headquarters here in Toronto. More and more tech job is coming to this side. Now, the other thing on top of the technology job, now I show you this, this is Kim Convenience. Under COVID, I also see a lot of, production, Netflix, Apple TV, Amazon, you name it. This one is local production by CBC, but is that only CBC produced in here too? Amazon also have, I'm not sure if you've seen the new Netflix. Isabel, did you follow Netflix? Queen's Gambit. It's actually produced here in Toronto. That's Netflix, okay? How about Amazon Prime? Amazon Prime, there's a dark comedy called The Boys. Both 1, 2, and 3. They actually use the backdrop at the Royal Thompson Hall to be there to do the production. So you say, okay, must be a coincidence. How about Hollywood movie? As we speak, Kevin Hart is here doing a major Hollywood movie called Men in Toronto. Now, that one is actually focused on real estate. We have to pay attention later on. They're actually doing it as we speak. And how about Apple TV? Apple TV, there's a series called Seas that is feature, Aquaman, that character to be one of the feature. They're actually doing here in Toronto too. This, you're talking about billions of dollars in movie production as the Hollywood North here. So this is the type of employment opportunity that I'm telling you. If you actually go to the City of Toronto website, you can actually see all the movie coming here to do the production. So here comes the employment opportunity, rental housing, and perhaps buying a home in the future. So how about education opportunity? Education opportunity is also very important, because if you have employment, you don't have education, we are missing the foreign student. U of T, yes, we are not Ivy League, but it is also ranked one of the top public university in the world. And how many foreign students are we talking about? Before COVID, we always have over 500,000 students coming here for study. Why are they coming? Take a look at education.com, the most current ranking. Canada is one of the best. Over Australia, Germany, United States, United Kingdom. So you have a lot more education opportunity. Ontario alone, you have over 42 different education opportunity here too. Not just university, community colleges, and then a lot of community college, university, and opportunity for higher education here in Toronto. As I mentioned about a geopolitical event happening too, Canada also announced immigration measure to support Hong Kong residents for many other areas as well too. A lot of people worry that Ontario University is actually losing students. We are not actually losing students. We still have the same amount of students coming here. But unfortunately, our borders closed. They still cannot come here yet. Okay. While you worry about the market being, a further drop in terms of the downtown condo market, the condo market is actually heating up. And then also the real estate continue to contribute to employment in Canada. That will be a good supporting figure. commercial leases. A lot of people say, okay, Isabel, don't show me any downtown condo. The office is leaving. There's just no office coming here too. As a matter of fact, wrong. Richardson Wealth, and I'm sure that maybe Ethan would know that financial institution, one of the largest private wealth organization in North America, they actually signed up 100,000 square foot lease in downtown Toronto. The South Core Financial Center and all that. Amazon also announced the expansion of office here as well. So I would not count out downtown yet. Commercial real estate, seeing wake up. There will be more a story talking about this as well too. And even luxury home, that is actually to show you the confidence of your employer. The rich and famous coming here too would want to buy into the luxury condo too. So that is also an important area that we have to pay attention. It's not just certain level class of access. It have shown some sign, and even the luxury home market. So the demand, I think I so far hopefully tell you too that the demand is not going down anytime soon. How about supply? The supply of land, I don't think the land is going down anytime soon. As a matter of fact, if you know of any landowner, Isabel, if any landowner wanted to sell the land and then we'd be able to convert into a condo, please run and talk to me. Labor will be a big challenge because under the COVID, we may not be able to utilize a lot more labor because of the COVID restriction. I call it our local hero. Unfortunately, this industry also need to deal with a big retirement too. 69% of the industry will think it will be a little bit more difficult to get more worker to work for us in construction. Costs, it's not going down anytime soon. This is a typical cost breakdown of a condo. Land value, obviously not going down. Construction costs under the COVID situation or the complexity of our design, it's not going down anytime soon. Soft costs, sales and marketing. Government charge, I'm also don't think that it's going down anytime soon because for right now, all before the stimulus, we're printing money. Somehow, someone is going to pay for it. So under normal circumstances, we have only between 8 to 14% profit, and I think this is going to further squeeze our bottom line. So for those of the audience wanted to hope for a drop in price, it may not be happening anytime soon. And for condo, if it is the market is not favorable, we may not actually start any project as well too. And Royal Bank would not give us money to build for sure, right, Bevan? So, so what is in general what the economy think about the market? So, according to CIBC, Benjamin Tao is one of my most respected economists. It's actually saying quite positive about the market. His point being is there's many factors point to a strong recovery. Canadian government leads in spending, and Canada must pay in U.S. recovery. And he also believed the office sector will be fine. So after all this, I hope I'll be able to tell you that demand is not going down anytime soon. We still continue to have a supply challenge. So if you ask us, how do we think the market is going? And I think our condo market will be here to stay.
That's amazing. Okay, thank you, Winson, for your time. I learned a lot. I actually this is my first time thinking about we need to look at the currency for future prediction too. So that's a very interesting point. Thank you. Yeah. So another thing I want to ask you guys can put all your question into the chat box. At the end of this meeting, we're gonna leave about 10 minutes to have Vincent, Nicholas, and Ethan to answer all you guys' question. Okay. So Nicholas, do you want to share your screen?
Yes, I'm already sharing.
Oh, okay, sure.
Perfect.
Yeah, so Nicholas is the sales manager at Tridel. So he's gonna talk about their future projects. Okay.
AKA our commercial time. Thank you very much for everybody for joining us. And I mean, Winson, well said. Every time I listen to Winson's presentation, I actually learn something new. And he's actually an expert in this industry. Not only does he have a over 25 years experience with Tridel, one of the leading developer and builder in Canada. He's also well respected, and so therefore we call him Professor Chen. Because of his knowledge and experience. So without further ado, I'm going to share with you our features project. First and foremost, that is Tridel at the Well. Actually, Tridel at the Well was one of the most anticipated project in 2019. It is a destination where people can live, eat, shop, work and play. This project consists of mixture of condominium, office, retails, and rental, and it's actually coming to downtown Spadina and front. Okay, so the next project is Eden Bridge, and it's actually a boutique mid-rise building in South Kingsway in Etobicoke. I'm gonna just show you some renderings right here, and it is active selling right now. And the next one is Royal Bayview. It is actually one of our high-end project in Thornhill and at Bayview and Royal Orchard. A lot of people like being next to the golf club, and this project is actually itself in the golf club. Okay, so just to show you some renderings right here. It used to be a ninth hole here. Okay, so Market Alexander Park, this is my my project. I'm actually looking after this project. It is Tridel newest downtown offering coming to Spadina and Dundas, 18 acres of master plan developments. We are actually active selling right now from our downtown office, 519 Queen Street West. And this is actually the third condominium building in this master plan development here. Okay, so building is a boutique mid-rise building with approximately 175 suites. And another site that is actually actively selling on the west side, which is called Westerly, and it is actually in Etobicoke at the Brewer and Islington. It's only a 3 minutes walking distance to Islington subway. Okay, and so for 2019, we will be introducing a few more projects. The first one out of gate will be at DuPont and Shaw, a 9-story building with 335 units. Okay, so should you want to get more information, and Tridel website is the greatest resource. You can go to www.tridel.com and for more information. And of course, if you're interested in any of our projects, feel free to reach out to Isabella and myself. And that concludes my part here, Isabella.
Okay, thank you, Nicholas. That's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to like the future projects with Tridel. Yeah, so we're gonna have like a couple minutes for breaks. Like I'm gonna ask some questions to Winson and Nicholas. Again, like everyone, if you have any question, please put it into the chat box. We're gonna leave 10 minutes at the end of the session to answer all, but now I'm just gonna pick the top couple ones. 1 second.
Isabella, I can just chime in for a second here. This is Ethan from RBC. This question is direct to Winson. So what's your take in terms of the unit sizes going forward? What I mean by that is, like, for example, a lot of lenders, for example, Scotia Bank or CIBC, they have restrictions in terms of the square footage of a unit. If the square footage is less than, let's say, 500 square feet, many lenders do not lend to that particular unit. RBC was one of the 5 banks that is able to lend regardless of the unit size. But recently, we've tightened our policy in that if a client is purchasing a unit less than 500 square feet, the client needs to have a really good business case for us to grant exception. For example, the client needs to have additional, let's say 10 to 50% liquid assets after down payment in order to service the mortgage. So that's the kind of situation that wasn't the case before, but now since the pandemic hit, it appears that the banks are more cautious towards units that are smaller in size. So is Tridel and other builders considering this going forward, and may not be inclined to build units that are smaller than 500 square feet, are going to build larger units?
Okay, so I can speak for Tridel for sure. For us, we definitely would not build too many suites smaller than 500 for two reasons. Number one, City of Toronto also have a growing up policy, meaning that make developer build larger suite. And especially after COVID too, and I think this point even more important is you need actually more space rather than less space. Less space, we try to manage the affordability issue, but however, we have a limit. We would not actually make it smaller than that. And then if you actually take a look at the market, the reaction to 2-bedroom, 1% actually get more attraction. And then if the suite actually become a little bit too small too, they may find it a little bit challenging or less flexible in terms of their use as well too. So I don't think we're going to see too many micro unit. I call it a micro unit moving forward. Will be slightly larger. And as a matter of fact, we do have good appetite for purchaser looking for bigger condo as well. Last year, sale, our average selling price is over $1 million. We do also see there is a upmarket trend for purchaser looking for more space and condo. And I think especially after COVID too, you probably would need, at least a separate room for work from home, Zoom meeting going forward. And I think space is not going to be become smaller. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, Tridel,
Thank you.
I mean, Tridel, we actually, I think, Winson, starting from 2015, starting 16, we actually recognize the need of larger spaces. So we actually already started building a bigger home for those who are looking to move in. The last project that I remember that we had a small unit, I mean, less than 500 square feet, was like Otter, which is way back. I mean, lately, all our 1-bedroom are starting from mid 500s minimum. I mean, that's, we call it. We think that's a proper home that people can live and enjoy.
That's actually interesting. I never saw, like in recent year, I never saw Tridel has bachelor unit. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we also, by demand and supply, we see more and more people at the end. Like, yes, I may have one or two studio suite. At the end of the day, when they finalize the deal with Nicholas, they actually want the larger suite. So we never have any sales success for really micro suite ourselves, anyways.
Okay.
Why don't we let the Ethan talk, and then we'll save your questions to the end.
Okay, sure. Okay, let's have Ethan Peng, the top 1% mortgage specialist nationwide from RBC, to give us a speech. Thank you, Ethan, for your time.
Ethan, you're muted. Ethan, you're muted.
Perfect. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So again, appreciate everybody's time. The weather is pretty cold outside, but it's pretty bright. So there's an illusion of good weather outside. So we'll be quick, but to the point, and hopefully we can let everybody out to enjoy the beautiful sunshine for the last few 20, 30 minutes. All right. So we'll be covering just the mortgage basics. And if you guys have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to me at the end of the presentation. I'll leave my contact information at the very end. So the topic will cover primarily two topics. One is the fixed rate versus variable. What are the benefits and what are the downsides? The second question I get asked a lot these days for a lot of clients, a lot of my existing clients who had purchased a property 2-3 years ago and who chose either a variable or 5-year fixed. They ask me, is now a good time to break my mortgage? I think a lot of clients here know that the rates are at a historical low. So we'll be addressing that question later on as well. So a little bit about myself, Ethan. I've been with RBC about 7 years. For the past few years, I've been lucky enough to rank top 1% across Canada. My background is actually not in finance, but rather in engineering. I graduated from University of Toronto, civil engineering, about 10 years ago. So for those of you who already have a mortgage, you probably are familiar with the different types of mortgages. But for those of you who are going to be first-time home buyers, just quickly on the two different types of mortgages. One is fixed and one is variable. As the name implies, a fixed rate mortgage means that the rate will remain the same for the duration of the term. So at RBC, we'll offer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year fixed. And then we also, for those of you who don't know, we also offer 7 and 10 years term fixed rate mortgages. Typically, the longer the term, the higher the interest rate. And for a variable rate, that means that the rate will differ depending on Bank of Canada. So if Bank of Canada's rate increases, your rate will increase accordingly. Typically, for the same duration, a fixed rate mortgage will have a higher interest rate compared to its variable counterpart. What I mean by that is, for example, typically a 5-year fixed rate will be higher compared to a 5-year variable rate. And this is primarily because a variable rate has its own risks associated with it. But one thing to keep in mind is that, and this is not a lot of people notice, is that a variable rate typically can be converted to a fixed rate at any time. This is true for RBC, and it is also true for majority of Schedule A banks, for example, TD, Scotia, etc. So why do people choose fixed rate? And this is primarily for 2 reasons, although I list 2 points here, but the first 2 are mostly the same. It's because of peace of mind, and it's because it's easier to budget. And the second reason is that the fixed rate now is at a historical low. So if we look at this chart here, this chart shows the historical discounted 5-year mortgage rates from 2006 to present day. We can see that in 2008, the 5-year fixed rate is about 6%. But as we move into 2014, 2016, the rate has dropped to about 2%. And now it's even lower. Now, a lot of people can get a fixed rate 5-year term lower than 1.6, 1.7. So we are currently at a historical low. And is that trend going to continue? That's something you have to take into consideration when deciding. The other point for consideration is that, is the premium worth it? So keep in mind that we are comparing a 5-year, in this case, we're comparing a 5-year fixed versus a 5-year variable. So for the same duration. Again, going back to the previous slide, a 5-year fixed rate is about 1.6, 1.7%. But for the same duration term for a variable rate, the rate might be as low as 1.4, 1.5. That's one thing to consider, because if Bank of Canada is going to maintain the current monetary and fiscal policy, then the rate might be the same for the variable rate for the next 5 years. So it might not be worth it to pay the premium going forward in order to exchange for the peace of mind. It might be worth it to take the risk and go for a variable rate. But again, this depends on the client. The second consideration is the penalty. The penalty for a client breaking the mortgage early for a fixed rate is a lot different from a variable rate. specifically, if the client has a fixed rate, then the penalty calculation is a greater of 3 months interest or interest rate differential. And we'll do an example later on, which will show that the IRD, the interest rate differential, can be significantly higher than that of a 3 months interest. The third consideration you want to keep in mind is the portability of the mortgage. This is true for a lot of Schedule A banks. What I mean by that is there are cases where a client does not have to break the mortgage. Let's say client John Smith, he purchased a property 2 years ago and he chose a 5-year fixed rate. 2 years down the road, he decides to upgrade to a different unit. In this case, he does not have to break the mortgage and pay a penalty. If he qualifies, he can transfer or port the mortgage from his current property to the next one. So he will carry on with his 5-year contract. He doesn't have to pay a cent on the penalty. But obviously, we have to re-adjudicate and re-approve the mortgage. But again, so if he qualifies, he would not have to pay penalty. This is not true for a lot of discounted mortgage rates that are offered by other Schedule B banks, because they have clauses where it says the mortgage is not transferable or not portable. So it is really important to know the mortgage itself, the details of the mortgage terms, not just focus on the rate. The rate is one aspect of that mortgage contract, but more importantly is knowing what the clauses, what the conditions are for that specific mortgage. And again, so the other key product is called a variable rate. So the variable rate is typically lower. And the reason a lot of clients are choosing variable rates now is because a lot of economists are anticipating the economic recovery will not gain full traction until 2022 or 2023. What that means is that the Bank of Canada will most likely keep the rate low. That means in turn, your variable rate will likely remain low as well. And one key consideration is that historically, variable rates have proven to be less expensive over the time. So you have to, as a client, consider is the premium you pay for a peace of mind worth it? So the next chart shows the historical rates between 5-year fixed versus 5-year variable. The orange line shows the variable rate, and the fixed one is denoted by blue line. You can see that going for the past 14 years, 15 years, for the majority of that duration, the variable rate is much lower than the fixed, except for a short period of time at the end of 2019. But as of now, again, the variable rate is about 10 to 20 basis points lower than it is 5-year fixed counterpart. And the reason, again, is because the variable rate is lower is because it's riskier. But again, that can be mitigated by the fact that first it can be converted to a fixed, and also the Bank of Canada is likely to maintain rate low. The other key differentiator between a variable rate and a fixed rate is that the penalty for a variable rate is only 3 months interest compared to that of a fixed rate, which is the greater of 3 months interest and an interest rate differential. So some statistics to show everybody. So mortgages in Canada, which is the most popular? So according to a 2019 survey, about 3/4 of Canadians choose a fixed rate mortgage. I guess Canadians are more conservative in general. About 20% Canadians have a variable rate, and about 5% have a hybrid rate. So I got a question asked just a moment ago by Chuck in the audience about is it possible to have part of the mortgage variable and a part of the mortgage fixed? And the answer to that is yes. This is for RBC at least, is called a home line plan. So under this umbrella, the client, let's say the client has been approved for a mortgage limit of $1 million. And this is for example. So under our product, a client can have up to 5 seconds. What it means by that is, theoretically, Chuck, for example, you can have a mortgage consisting of $200,000 in the form of 1-year fixed, $200,000 in the form of 3-year fixed, another $200K for 4-year fixed, 5-year fixed, and the remaining $200K in the form of a 5-year variable. Now, there are clients might be wondering, why would I do that? And the question is, if you guys do investing, if you guys invest in the equity market, you should know then one key to success, return on investment, is diversification. So with this product, if a client wants to take advantage of the current very low 5-year variable rate, but also wants to mitigate the risk of the rate going up, he might choose to have $500K at the rate of for a 5-year variable term, but the remainder for a 5-year fixed. So that would mitigate the risk associated with having a variable rate. And the second consideration is applicable to cases where if a client thinks that he will be able to pay off a portion of the mortgage much sooner than expected. So what I mean by that is, let's say if a new immigrant coming to Canada has a property, let's say in Hong Kong or in mainland China, and that property will be sold, but not yet sold. So in this case, the client might choose to have out of that $1 million mortgage, let's say $500K in the form of 5-year fixed, but the remaining $500K in the form of a variable or even open term, because once the property overseas has been sold, then he can pay off that $500K immediately, which means that he doesn't have to wait until the end of the term to pay off the balance of the mortgage. So in a nutshell, the product that we offer at RBC can be really flexible, and it can be tailored to a client's individual needs. So when it comes to choosing variable rate and fixed rate, there are 5 key questions to ask yourself. The first one is, how large of a payment can I afford today? This is because when it comes to calculating the amount of mortgage that a bank can lend, for example, RBC, we will be based on the client's income and also what's called a stress rate. And if the client goes with the variable rate, and because the rate is slightly lower, then the bank possibly can lend a little bit more compared to if the bank were lend based on a 5-year fixed or even 7-year fixed rate term. The second question is, how long will live on the property? Is it going to be 2 years or 5 years? That would determine if you have to pay a penalty or not, if you choose to break the mortgage. The third question is, are you still going to be comfortable or even afford a variable rate if the interest rises? And this is true previously, but again, going back to what I said a few slides ago, the rate for a 5-year variable is likely going to remain the same for the next 2 to 3 years. And the fourth question and the last question is, where is the interest headed? And then it's going to be short-term or long-term. And from those answers to your questions, you then can decide whether you should go with a variable or fixed term. The second question I get asked a lot is, should I break my mortgage? And I guess the answer, my first question is, if the client is not already banking with us or doesn't have a mortgage with us, is can you even break the mortgage? This is because although most Schedule A banks allow the client to break a mortgage, provided that the client pays a penalty, there are a lot of lenders that does not allow a client break the mortgage unless it is a sale between, unless the client passes away, for example. Otherwise, the client is unable to break the mortgage. And the second question I ask the client is, what's your goal? Like, is there a better way than breaking the mortgage? Is your goal to tap into the equity, tap into the equity of the property, or is it because you want to pay a lower interest rate now that the rate is at a historical low? Because if that's the case, there are better ways. For example, making prepayments into the mortgage rather than paying penalty. And the last question is, how much is the penalty? So we'll do a quick calculation at the end of the presentation to show you the differences between IRD, so interest rate differential, versus 3 months interest. So prepayment. So RBC, we offer a lot of choices when it comes to prepayment options. So what prepayment means that if a client signs a 5-year contract with RBC, it does not mean the client can only pay a certain amount every single month. As a matter of fact, the client can choose the payment frequency from monthly to even bi-weekly, weekly, or semi-monthly, or they can accelerate the payment schedule. And also, the client can pay more than what's mandated on the contract. For example, at RBC, we allow the client to pay up to 100% more than the amount on the approval letter. And we allow the client to pay up to 10% of the original principal. So let me run an example. So the client has a mortgage of $500,000, and the monthly payment is going to be roughly $2,000. So at RBC, we allow the client to pay additional $2,000 a month, and we allow the client to pay $50,000 per 12-month period. What that means in turn is that the client can effectively pay out the entire mortgage without paying any penalty, like in about 7 years. So that would save a lot of interest if that's your goal. The second method of alternative to breaking the mortgage is called refinance. So if the client has a mortgage already with RBC, there are ways where the client can tap into the equity of the property without breaking the mortgage. So at RBC, going back to my previous slides, we offer, again, home line plan. So if a client has a $500K conventional mortgage with RBC, and the client's income has increased and the client's property value has also increased, what we can do is we can have the client maintain that $500K mortgage at the previously agreed terms and conditions and the payment schedule, and then we lend additional $200K with a new term, with a new payment schedule. So that way, the client does not break the mortgage. Instead, the client signs a new contract. The benefit of that is not just only avoiding the penalty. The second benefit is that you can then use the new mortgage amount at the lower interest rate and use that to pay for your for products with a higher interest rate. For example, your previous mortgage. And maybe your car loan, because the car loan, typically the financing rate is about 3 to 4%. And even on credit cards, which is typically 19 to 21%. But with a 5-year variable rate now being like as low as 1.5%, you would be able to save a lot of interest without paying a penalty. And lastly, if you currently have a mortgage elsewhere and you are paying, let's say, 2.9% interest rate, and you wish to transfer RBC, that will be a good time. But then again, we have to determine if it's worth it or not. But did you know that RBC, we cover a lot of fees involved with the switching? So there are typically 3 types of fees involved with a typical switch. And this is not including the penalty. The 3 are, the first one is the appraisal fee. The second one is registration, and lastly, discharge fee. So in total is about $1,000 $200 in value, with RBC, we will be able to cover that fees. And from time to time, we also have cash incentive and promotions on top of covering those fees. Just let me give you an example. About 3-4 months ago, we had a campaign where if the clients are switching a mortgage for a mortgage size over $750,000, we will be able to cover the fees, but also provide a cashback up to $2,000. So that would mitigate a lot of the costs associated with the transfer the mortgage. So now we'll run a real life example, and don't mind the specific calculations. The key of the example is to demonstrate the differences between a variable rate and a fixed rate. So the example goes like this. The client has an existing mortgage and balance is about $500,000 at a 2.69% interest rate. And the current monthly payment is about $2,200 per month. The term, the interest for the entire 5-year term is about $62,000. The client now knows that the current rate a bank can offer is about 1.69%, again, for 5-year fixed. The payment is going to be $2,043. So it's about $250 less. The term interest is $38,000. So if we compare between term and term, the saving is about $22,000. Plus, this bank offers, let's say RBC offers a cash incentive of $1,000. But here's the kicker. The estimated penalty for breaking the mortgage at the present moment is $22,000. So the saving effectively is about $2,000 for the client for the entire duration of the mortgage for the next 5 years. So in this case, the client might need to think about this again. So is it worth it to break the mortgage if your goal is simply to save on the monthly payment? So in my opinion, it might not be worth it because the penalty is so high, even though RBC might offer you to cover the fees, and even if we offer you cash incentive, because at the end of the day, the savings over 5-year term is only $2,000. Okay, but if your goal is to tap into the property, into the equity of the property, then it might be worth it. So that's the first scenario, in which case the client has a fixed rate mortgage. The second scenario is where the client has a variable rate. In this case, we can see that the new monthly payments, given the variable rate is 1.5%, the estimated penalty for breaking the previous mortgage rate is only $2,600. So that's quite significantly less than the fixed rate, which was about $22,000. In this case, the saving is going to be roughly $8,000. So it might be worth it in this case if you had a variable rate compared to a fixed rate. So this slide just compares the differences between a variable rate penalty versus a fixed rate penalty. Again, keep in mind that for a fixed rate mortgage, the penalty is the greater of 3 months interest and 3 months with and interest rate differential. So in summary, we covered a few things. So one is variable rate or fixed. Again, it really depends on what your needs are and what your risk tolerance are. The second key point is it is always a good idea to review your mortgage statement from time to time, especially if your mortgage provider is not one of the Schedule A banks, because there are some key clauses that you might not be aware of. Next is that the rates are at a historical low for both fixed rate and the variable rates, and the trend is likely to continue. And next is that the housing market going strong, so it might be a good opportunity to tap into your current property, the equity of your current property, and make that money, that equity available to do refinance and to invest in an investment property. So again, we're here to support, and this is our direct line. So this is our 1-800 number, and this is my contact information. Again, my name is Ethan, and you can reach me at my direct line here and my email address.
Thank you, Ethan, for this informative information. I actually learned a lot by myself too. I never heard about hybrid mortgage before. Like this is the first time I learned about that. I have a question that so anyone who has question, please type into the chat box. And I have a question. If you already variable interest rate, why do you still want to break your mortgage? Isn't that?
Well, so if you have a variable rate interest to begin with, that rate might not be the lowest interest that you currently have, because the interest rate is expressed as prime minus a discount, right? So the prime is the same for most clients. Currently it's 2.45%. But the discount the bank gives will vary from time to time. For example, right? About a year ago, the prime was 2.95%, but the discount was 1%. So the client was getting a rate of 1.95% because of the discount is so high. Fast forward 5 months later, even though the prime has dropped from 2.95 to 2.45%, but the discount that banks are giving will be less. At that time, the bank is only giving 0.2% discount. So effectively, the client's rate is 2.45 minus 0.2%, ending with 2.25% interest rate.
Okay.
So to summarize, the answer to your question is, the reason a client might want to break their previous variable rate is because the discount that they received from the bank was less compared to if they were to receive a new variable mortgage now.
I see.
So that's the reason.
Okay. And another question is that safe to say if my previous mortgage is about to come to an end, or are you having a variable mortgage rate, then it's worse to break the mortgage? Or is case by case again?
Again, it's case by case, right? So we have, again, so one thing is we have to know what your goal is. Is your goal to tap into the equity of the property? If that's the case, and the return from that transaction, let's say if you are able to take out additional $200,000 from the property and invest it in the equity market or invest it in the real estate market, and you can get a return of more than 7% or 9% or 10%, then it might be worth it now to break the mortgage, and even if you have to pay a penalty.
I see.
Right? But if your goal is only to maybe save on the monthly interest, then we have to calculate how much it's going to cost you to break the mortgage.
I see. Yeah, thank you so much for your answers. So Winson and Nicholas, I have a question from a client. So I know like Tridel has a lot of projects on the Bay side. So for example, Aqua Luna, Aqua Vesta, but as like Google announcing they're not gonna build the smart Google Smart Lab anymore, what's gonna happen to the the east side of Toronto?
Well, actually, I answer one of your audience as well too. My take to it is that actually means opportunity for creative developer, meaning that there's only one option. Just like you receive one offer doesn't mean that that's the last offer, right? Like there was one offer, they offered to build a Google Sidewalk Lab. It is the Google Sidewalk Lab the highest and best offer? I guess not, because interestingly, if you'd actually take a look at the major city across North America, how many city actually welcome Google Sidewalk Lab? Not many. We are the only one that really wants it. So my take to it is, and I think that will open up more opportunity for other developer. I tell you two major scene is going to happen in Toronto. Google Sidewalk Lab is only covering one, which is technology. But it's Google Sidewalk Lab the only technology company? Number one, no. That could be other technology company. Number two is Hollywood North. So Amazon, Apple TV, and even Amazon Prime and all that too. And I think that would give more opportunity for that particular piece of land to be further developed, maybe even better value. We don't know. So I would not take Google the Sidewalk Lab issue to be a negative news to me. Obviously, as a developer, I think it's a good news. At least there's an opportunity for us as well, right? Not just Google Sidewalk Lab. So this is how I take it. And I think Toronto is quite resilient, and we see how we evolve. Before Bayside was a sugar factory or industrial. Right now, you turn it into one of the major South Core financial center. And I told you before too, even Richardson Wealth has also secured from other developer over 100,000 square feet. So I think sky's the limit. So I think that would be to me is a good news rather than negative.
I see. Yeah, thank you for your answer. Is there any questions? Yes, we all good now? Okay. Thank you again. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, Ethan, for your time joining this meeting and give us a lot of information. I need to rewatch this video again. Like I learned a lot from this meeting. And okay, so and again, thank you for all the people.
تنها غیر چینیش منم سویدا.
Yeah, someone forgot to unmute.
Okay.
No worries.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining this meeting too. This meeting gonna go on my YouTube channel as well. So if you guys gonna want to rewatch it or whatever, just subscribe my YouTube channel. And meanwhile, in the future, I'm gonna have other meetings with like lawyers, accountants talking about real estate, all the transaction issues or anything like real estate strategy. Yeah, so stay tuned and please subscribe my channel. And I'm gonna share my screen for my contact information too. Feel free to reach us out if you have any question. 1 second. Yeah, like if you have any question, please feel free to give me a call or text message or email. I'm here to help. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.